When we talk about aging, most people focus on money, health, or retirement, but very few talk openly about intimacy, companionship, and dating after 60. At this stage of life, men often find themselves facing big questions. Do I actually need a partner anymore? Am I better off alone? Or is love still something worth chasing? See, society paints this picture that romance is just for the young, but the truth is, emotional connection, physical intimacy, and companionship don't suddenly lose their importance when you hit a certain age. In fact, for many men, this is when the need for genuine connection is stronger than ever. But here's the catch. Dating after 60 comes with unique challenges no one really talks about. From shifting priorities to health issues, to dealing with loneliness or even social stigma, it's a whole new world. So today, let's cut through the myths, break down the realities, and really talk about whether men over 60 truly need women, or if what they need most is something deeper that goes beyond just having a partner. Loneliness after 60 isn't weakness. It's a silent epidemic men rarely admit, and it creeps in more quietly than most people realize. It doesn't arrive with a sudden bang, it builds slowly, day after day, as friends move away, as loved ones pass on, as careers that once provided purpose and social interaction come to an end. One morning a man wakes up and the house feels a little too quiet, the phone doesn't ring as often, and the social circle that once seemed endless begins to shrink into nothing more than a handful of distant names. That emptiness isn't just emotional, it starts to affect the body, the mind, and the soul in ways that aren't easy to talk about. What makes this stage of life so difficult is that men are conditioned from a young age to push feelings aside, to wear strength like armor, and to never show cracks. But aging strips away those illusions piece by piece. After 60, when the noise of work, ambition, and endless obligations finally settles, silence becomes deafening. It's in those moments, sitting at a dinner table set for one or coming home to an empty room, that reality sinks in. The truth is, loneliness isn't about being physically alone, it's about lacking that one person who truly sees you, who hears the unspoken words, who makes the air around you feel lighter. Many men tell themselves they're fine, that they don't need anyone, but inside, there's a hunger not for grand romance or passion-filled nights, but for simple, consistent connection. It could be a soft voice saying good morning, someone sharing coffee across the table, or just having another heartbeat in the room. These seemingly small things are what keep the spirit alive. When those disappear, the walls start closing in, and the mind, no matter how strong, begins to create stories of isolation, of irrelevance, of fading into the background of life. That's the harsh truth. Loneliness isn't weakness, it's biology, it's psychology, it's human nature asking for what it has always needed: companionship. The problem is, society doesn't prepare men for this shift. Youth teaches them to chase success, middle age demands responsibility, but later years rarely come with guidance on how to nurture relationships or how to rebuild intimacy when life slows down. Without that roadmap, many find themselves lost, pretending strength while carrying an invisible weight that grows heavier with every passing year. Studies even show that loneliness in older men can cut years off life expectancy, increasing risks of heart disease, memory loss, and depression. But statistics don't capture the emotional truth. It's not numbers that hurt. It's lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone still thinks about you, wondering if anyone truly cares. This is why the question of whether men over 60 really need women isn't just about romance. It's about survival. Having a partner isn't about filling a role, it's about filling the silence. It's about having someone who reminds you that you're still here, still relevant, still worth loving. Without that connection, even the strongest man can crumble under the weight of solitude. The tragedy is that many will never admit it out loud, because admitting loneliness feels like confessing weakness. But in reality, the opposite is true. Acknowledging the need for connection is one of the bravest acts a man can make in his later years, because it means choosing life, choosing vulnerability, choosing the possibility of joy even after loss and heartbreak. So, when we talk about men after 60, we can't reduce their needs to money, hobbies, or health. Those things matter, but they don't heal the ache of an empty room. What matters most is human closeness. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it doesn't have to mirror the fiery passion of youth, but it has to be real. A hand to hold, a laugh to share, a presence to wake up next to. That's not weakness, it's the very thing that keeps the soul from drying up. Loneliness after 60 is the quiet disease, the one people don't notice until it's too late, but recognizing it is the first step to understanding why connection, companionship, and love remain as vital as oxygen, no matter what age a man reaches. Society tells older men to age quietly, but silence kills connection. There is this unspoken rule written into culture that once a person crosses a certain age, their voice should soften, their needs should shrink, and their desires should be tucked away as though they no longer matter. Age is expected to bring dignity, but what people often mean by dignity is invisibility. The harsh truth is that silence, when forced, doesn't create peace, it creates isolation. And isolation slowly eats away at the spirit. From a young age, people are taught to equate strength with stoicism, to wear hardship like armor to avoid revealing the cracks. By the time later years arrive, those lessons become prisons. Staying silent about pain, about loneliness, about the need for love and intimacy begins to suffocate the heart. And yet society rewards this silence, clapping politely for the one who seems self-sufficient, who asks for nothing, who fades into the background without demanding attention. But what gets lost in the applause is the cost, emotional starvation, the kind that leaves even the strongest soul brittle. The truth is, human beings were never designed to live in silence. Conversation, laughter, even simple acknowledgement, these are what keep life vibrant. Silence, when chosen, can be peaceful, but when imposed, it becomes a cage. It tells a person that their story no longer matters, that their experiences are outdated, that their voice carries no weight. Imagine carrying decades of wisdom, of lessons of love, and feeling as though no one cares to listen. That is not aging with dignity, that is erasing existence. Connection is oxygen for the human heart. Without it, health declines, memory weakens, and hope fades. Yet society makes it harder for older voices to be heard, dismissing their truths as irrelevant in a world obsessed with youth. The demand to age quietly is not kindness. It is cruelty dressed as respect. It strips away the opportunity to express need, to admit vulnerability, to reach for companionship. When those needs are buried under silence, the result is not dignity but despair. Silence also feeds stigma. The older someone gets, the more shame is attached to admitting they still long for closeness, still crave companionship, still want to feel alive in love and intimacy. Instead of celebrating this honesty, culture shames it as though needing connection after 60 is embarrassing or unnatural. That stigma pushes people deeper into their shells, where loneliness thrives. But the truth is, there is nothing shameful about longing for what makes us human. The desire for connection is timeless, ageless, and it does not diminish because society has decided it should. Breaking that silence takes courage, because it means stepping outside of what the world expects. It means admitting that emotional needs never expire, that the hunger for touch, laughter, companionship, and love continues until the very last breath. And when that silence is broken, something powerful happens. Connection flows back in, the eyes regain light, the voice carries strength, and the spirit rediscovers purpose. It is not weakness to speak, it is survival. Think about the difference between a quiet home where no one enters and a home filled with conversation, shared meals, and laughter. One feels like waiting, the other feels like living. The same is true for the heart. Silence leaves it waiting, stagnant, half asleep. Connection wakes it up, reminding it of all the reasons life is still worth embracing. That is why refusing silence is so vital in later years. It isn't about making noise for attention. It's about choosing life over slow disappearance. When someone allows themselves to speak openly about their needs, they give others permission to do the same. Vulnerability creates bridges. One voice admitting, "I still want love, I still want closeness," can echo into countless others who feel the same but are too afraid to say it. In this way, breaking silence doesn't just heal the individual, it begins to heal the collective. It challenges the narrative that aging means retreat and instead proves that aging can mean expansion, deeper connection, and even rediscovery. The harsh truth no one tells is that silence, though it may appear strong, erodes the spirit faster than time itself. Connection is not a youthful indulgence, it is the very core of human resilience. To live without it is to fade while still breathing. To claim it, to demand it even when the world suggests you should stay quiet. That is where true dignity lies. Because dignity is not about disappearing gracefully, it is about living fully until the very end, unapologetically acknowledging that the need for connection never grows old. Companionship goes beyond romance. It's about emotional survival, and this truth becomes sharper with age. People often confuse companionship with the idea of needing someone just to share a bed or to call a partner, but the essence is much deeper. Companionship is about having another soul who witnesses your journey, who walks beside you when the world feels uncertain, and who anchors your existence in ways that go beyond words. When the rush of youth fades, when the noise of careers, children, and responsibilities quiets down, what remains is the raw human need to feel seen and understood. That is where companionship steps in, not as luxury but as necessity. It is often said that love is fire and passion, but companionship is the warmth that keeps you alive long after the fire dims. Think about the small, everyday rituals. Sharing a cup of tea in the morning, watching the news together, sitting in silence without it feeling empty. These are not grand gestures, but they are the invisible threads that hold a life together. Without them, days stretch into endless monotony. The heart doesn't crave constant excitement in later years, it craves presence. A reminder that life is still shared, that someone is still walking this path alongside you. As the years pass, the truth becomes clearer: companionship is less about romance and more about resilience. It is what keeps the mind sharp, the emotions balanced, and the soul nourished. A conversation at the end of the day can calm storms that loneliness would otherwise amplify. A shared glance can speak louder than 100 words. These are the little things that make survival not just possible but meaningful. Without companionship, survival becomes mechanical. Eating, sleeping, existing. With companionship, survival becomes living, breathing, experiencing. It turns the mundane into something bearable, sometimes even beautiful. The tragedy is that many underestimate this power. They think survival is about physical health, financial stability, or independence. Yet even the strongest body and the most secure bank account can feel hollow when the spirit is starved of connection. True survival is emotional, because without emotional balance, the body weakens, the mind darkens, and life becomes a shadow of what it once was. That's why companionship is more than just a want. It is the foundation of emotional health. Studies confirm it, but deeper than research is the lived reality. The sound of laughter echoing in a room is medicine that no pill can replicate. What makes companionship unique is that it doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't ask for flawless beauty, endless passion, or the vigor of youth. It thrives on acceptance, two people choosing to be present for each other despite imperfections. It is not about being everything for someone, it's about being there. That presence is what brings safety, stability, and a reason to keep going when days get heavy. In the later stages of life, it is not the dramatic highs that sustain you, but the steady consistency of companionship. When companionship is missing, life often becomes a series of isolated moments with no one to reflect them back. Think of how empty an achievement feels if there is no one to share it with, or how unbearable sorrow can feel when there is no one to comfort you. Companionship transforms both joy and pain. Joy becomes brighter because it's shared, and pain becomes lighter because it's carried together. That balance is what keeps the human spirit alive. Without it, life feels like shouting into an empty room, hoping for an echo that never comes. Many people assume that after a certain age, companionship is optional, something nice to have but not essential. The truth is the opposite. It becomes more essential as time goes on because the older we get, the fewer distractions we have to cover the emptiness. Youth can hide loneliness behind busy schedules and constant activity. Later years strip those distractions away, and what remains is raw truth. Human beings are wired for connection. Companionship is not a chapter of life, it is the binding thread of the whole book. So when the question arises, do people truly need a partner after 60? The answer lies not in romance, but in survival. Companionship doesn't always mean marriage or traditional relationships. It can mean a friend, a confidant, a partner in laughter and in grief. What matters is the presence of another, someone who reminds you that you are not walking this road alone. Because when all is said and done, companionship is not about avoiding loneliness. It is about preserving humanity itself. Physical intimacy changes, but the need for touch never disappears. Many people misunderstand this reality, believing that with age, the body simply stops longing for closeness, as though desire belongs only to the young. Yet the truth is, the hunger for touch, for connection, for skin against skin, remains one of the most powerful forces in human life. It is not always about passion in the way it once was, but about reassurance, comfort, and the grounding sense that you are still alive, still worthy of being held, still deserving of warmth. Touch is the language the body never forgets, and even when years carve wrinkles into the skin, the heart still listens to it with the same urgency as before. What shifts with time is not the need, but the way intimacy expresses itself. In youth, intimacy may burn like a wildfire, fast and intense, but as the years pass, it becomes something deeper, quieter, more sustaining. It moves from intensity to tenderness, from desire alone to connection that speaks without words. A hand resting gently on yours, a hug that lingers a little longer, the simple act of sitting shoulder to shoulder. These carry weight far greater than fleeting passion. For someone over 60, these moments can mean the difference between feeling invisible and feeling profoundly human. The challenge is that society often paints older bodies as past their prime, as though intimacy should fade alongside youth. But that is a myth. The body may change, hormones may shift, energy may slow, but the craving to be touched and cherished doesn't vanish. In fact, it often grows stronger because touch becomes less about physical release and more about emotional survival. It is not just the body that benefits, but the mind and the soul. Gentle touch lowers stress, strengthens the immune system, reduces anxiety, and sparks feelings of belonging. It tells the body you are not alone, you are still worthy of closeness, you are still part of something larger than yourself. When intimacy is absent, life starts to feel hollow. The absence of touch creates a quiet ache, one that words cannot soothe. Loneliness can be softened by conversation, but the lack of physical closeness leaves an emptiness that nothing else can fill. Imagine going years without a genuine embrace, without someone's hand brushing against yours, without that silent communication of love and care. It is not just an emotional loss, it is a physical wound that lingers beneath the surface. Human beings are wired for touch. It is the first language we ever learn, and it remains the last one we ever forget. Intimacy in later years is also about freedom, the freedom to rediscover closeness without the pressures of youth. There is no rush, no competition, no need to perform. It becomes about exploration, about comfort, about finding joy in simplicity. It may not look like the fiery nights of the past, but it becomes something even richer, intimacy that is not rushed, not forced, but savored like a fine wine that has matured with time. Each moment of closeness becomes precious, not because of its intensity, but because of its depth. Unfortunately, many are too embarrassed to admit this need, believing it is shameful to long for intimacy past a certain age. That silence only deepens the ache. The truth is, acknowledging this desire is not weakness, it is honesty. It is the recognition that even when the body changes, the soul still whispers for closeness. This is not about clinging to youth, but about embracing the full spectrum of human connection at every stage of life. To deny that truth is to deny part of what makes life worth living. The presence of touch gives life meaning in ways people rarely speak about. A kiss on the forehead, a hand intertwined with yours as you drift into sleep, the warmth of a body next to yours on a cold night. These moments